Howdy. Howdy. So, this is the big operations talk for enterprise folks. I am in IT. So, my name is Pete Apple, which we actually changed our name to Core Services Engineering and Operations, but I'm in IT. And so, I'm going to be talking about IT things. I'm going to be talking about some of the journeys that we've done for our IT operations in moving to the cloud. And so you're going to get the point of view as somebody who's actually within Microsoft, who uses Azure day to day, who has to use the product themselves. And so it might be similar to what you might be doing, what your customers might be doing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we figured it out and how we did it. And so that's really the talk that I'm going to give today. And I hope you find it interesting. Now, there's a couple things that I'm going to clarify. You're not going to really believe either of them. One, I'm from IT, and I am here to help you. So that's one of the first things. And the second thing is that, yes, my last name is Apple, and I work at Microsoft, and that has been the case for the last 20 plus years. And so if you think you have a tough job sometimes, I have to explain that many times each week as I'm talking to different customers. And so I don't know Mr. Google or Mr. Facebook at the company. I've heard all of them, but I'm welcome always for any new ones that you want to have. So happy to have that conversation. All right, so let's talk a little bit about us. Microsoft's a small little company, about 120,000 employees in the Active Directory, about twice that if you add in all the vendors and partners and other folks. And so we've got a little bit of folks to worry about. And then we have a whole bunch of different authorizations, Skype meetings that we manage. We make sure all the different devices work properly. We had a very, very big environment. Now, a lot of that stuff was running on-premise, and I owned a bunch of that. I had 45,000 operating system instances within our data centers, and that's physicals and VMs, right? 5+ years ago, I owned all the Hyper-V environment. I owned all the physical servers, all the VMs, all the storage that was attached. At this point today, we are actually now at 89% of those servers on-prem are gone. They went up into the cloud, or we've gotten rid of them. So that means I went from about 45,000, 46,000 systems on-premise. I'm now down to less than 8,000, and the rest of it went somewhere else. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, how we did it, what was involved, and what were kind of the lessons that we learned, and where we're going to go in the future with it. Okay? So a lot of things we started to do back in 2005 when I first started owning some of this stuff was to really figure out how to automate. A lot of our processes were manual. We built out VMs manually. We built out clusters manually. We figured out how to automate it even within our Hyper-V environments, make sure everything was a little bit faster, meet the better SLAs. We then tried to make sure that we would optimize. We tried to make things more efficient. We tried to cut down on the SLA. It used to take me, honestly, sometimes a week to build out people's VMs because there was so much custom work. We were having to configure the SQL servers a certain way. What we started to do was really just try to standardize, standard builds, standard configurations, and then try to automate it, turn it into scripts, things that our vendors could run continually over and over and then measure, and really cut back and start to really involve things like System Center orchestration, and then eventually now Azure automation to build a lot of that stuff that we used to build. We then started to try and move things into the cloud. When I first started out, I had A SKUs in order to put everything onto the data center up into the cloud. And I very quickly started to talk to our own partners within the product group and say, I really need bigger SKUs, I need faster disk drives, I need some sort of PaaS solutions, I want to be able to move my SQL servers, not just from an operating system, but up into the cloud as it would be just as a database. Why do I have to worry about an operating system? And they started really listening to us, and we really started to try and move things the right way, the right destination, as opposed to just lift and shift all the operating systems. As we started to move those up, we really started to see even more convergence, even more automation. I really started to try and use things like ARM templates, build out the VMs and the PaaS resources, standardize every day, and then start to build them by the customers. Have them start to build everything out as opposed to my team having to build them out for them. This really, again, cut down on the SLA. Instead of them waiting 24 hours for their resource to show up, I could give them a template, say, here's your ARM template, use Azure Resource Manager, build it yourself, and it's ready in 30 minutes for you, right? And then I could put policy on it. I could make sure it was governed the right way. I could limit the regions. I could limit the SKUs. I could limit the express route they connected to so that I could make sure that they were building it themselves, but also staying within the boundaries that we wanted for them to be able to use it, to keep them safe. As we started to go even more digital, we started to look at the various engineering roles. I've shifted a bunch of my operations from the old school IDLE. Anybody know what IDLE is or heard of IDLE? That good old, yeah, isn't that, yeah, good job. It's, yeah, no more of the IDLE. Now we use SREs, DRIs, major incidents are turned into live sites. We do everything in the modern fashion. We make sure that the right people respond to it both in dev and in operations whenever we have issues. So we've tried to move even more to digital. Things that used to be manual, we now automate. Anything that we can converge, we do. We're making sure we have one environment to build by being able to build the same thing in Azure and in the cloud, and then also on-premise. Okay? So what that meant was I took a look at our entire environment, and we evaluated whether it should go to the cloud as is, if it should go up to the cloud as some sort of PaaS solution, or if it should be converted into some sort of SaaS solution. Anybody that's going to move anything into the cloud should be looking at that. They should be doing that evaluation. They should make sure they have a good inventory. They should also make sure they're using their resources, understand what they have. One of the hardest things we did was actually to fix our inventory system because it wasn't very good, to be honest. And finding out what you have in your data centers is critical to being able to move the right things to it. We then also make sure we optimized everything that was still left on-prem. Anything that had legal requirements, regulatory requirements, the Windows source code that's in lock cages. We made sure that we would identify the stuff that needed to stay on-prem for a while and eventually could move into the cloud when the right restrictions or the right things were able to be there. We're looking really hard at GDPR, what that means, keeping data in the right regions, the right countries. You have to do that analysis when you're moving up to the cloud. You have to do that analysis whether you're using VMs, SQL DB, SQL Data Warehouse, or serverless. If a company has to worry about where their data lives, even if it's serverless or microservices, you still have to know where that storage is at. That's something that we have to track within IT. That's something that other companies would have to track as well. So a lot of the stuff that we looked at and worked on was looking at ExpressRoute for doing a lot of the lift and shift. Now, ExpressRoute basically connects Azure to your data center with a dedicated pipe. It's bigger than a VPN, gives you anywhere from 1 gig to 2 gig so that you can have a direct connection. It essentially extends your IP address space from your on-prem out into the cloud. This makes it such that I could take a lot of my systems as is, the same name, move them from where they were up into the cloud in a weekend and not anybody would know. It looked to them like it was still running in the same fashion. I had just done a maintenance window, and they were still running the same way that they were previously. This enabled you to start exiting data centers very rapidly. We had some pretty tight schedules, some systems that were going to be going out of warranty, some data centers that were going to be going out of a lease. And so I wanted to be able to move them quick and then look at them and modernize them perhaps later. And so there's a lot of things we moved from a VM and Hyper-V up to IaaS, and now we're looking at, hey, can we modernize this? Hey, can we turn this into some sort of serverless or some sort of microservice? And so there's a two-step process for some of these systems. Other ones I looked at and I just said, yeah, we're going to make it microservice right away. And so that really is a business decision and also a little bit of a technical decision. We made sure that we replicate our same networks up into the cloud. And so my corp domain, Redmond domain that we have within Microsoft, I can replicate that up into the cloud and be able to use it. And same thing, I would be able to then do focus just on lift and shift for a lot of those things. Now in 2018, we're really looking at IaaS as the next data center we're going to start to exit, right? I had 13,000 VMs in IaaS. I now have 11. And that's going to continue to shrink as I move away from an operating system environment. Now, let me just clarify for the folks who didn't hear that clearly. I'm at Microsoft saying I'm going to get rid of operating systems in my environment. I'm going to try and eradicate all of the Windows within our data centers and within IaaS. I did not think I was going to be saying that 20 years ago. And so it is a very new world at Microsoft. It's a very new world within our enterprise and within IT. It is kind of crazy that the stuff that we're doing, and we're thrilled about it. We use a ton of Linux as well. I use a ton of microservices at this point, SQLDB. I know a lot of you probably have to deal with this, but I will be really glad when I never hear the words Patch Tuesday ever again. On my patches from Patch Tuesday. So I look forward to all the days when you folks can do that as well. Other thing we're trying to do is really try to optimize. We're really trying to make sure that the right resources are used at the right time. One of the things we talk about a lot is how efficient are our operating systems, right? Most of the data centers in the world, if you go and look at the operating systems that are running, they're around, I think it's 6%. That's what they run day to day. 6% CPU. That means 94% of the server is not being used. And that's because basic apps don't scale well on a single system, or they're not using them at the right time, they've not right-sized them. So one of the first things we did as soon as we moved a bunch of stuff up was start to right-size it. We started to try and drive up the CPU percentage to make sure all the systems are being used efficiently. Because when you're in the cloud, you're paying by the hour. It's not anymore that you bought it and it sits there. Now you're paying for the hour. It's money going down the clock. And one of the big things we did then was to say, you know, we figured out operating systems are inefficient. If I move it to some sort of microservice, it scales up and down on its own. The real way to get the most CPU percentage is to move away from the operating system to something that will scale on its own. And so that's what we're trying to push with all of our environments. Everything greenfield in Microsoft and IT is going to be on serverless or microservices from the get-go. No more operating systems if we can help it. Another things we're trying to make sure is we're trying to make sure that we prioritize SaaS where we can. We now use a lot more third parties, where before we would develop it in-house. If there's a third party that we partner with that has great products, we will use them instead of building it ourselves these days. And so there's a lot of folks here in this expo where there are partners, and IT now is using those services where we wouldn't have before. And that's really the new culture at Microsoft. Partnering, being able to use the right products for the right solution, and then build versus buy is a better decision. So, a lot of things that changed. We got more modern. We're very definitely trying to push as many people as possible to the right things and the right services. Azure functions are really starting to pick up. Containers have started to pick up. Microservices and looking at the very Docker, Kubernetes, we don't care. I don't care. I will let any of my internal customers use whatever is appropriate for their work and for their solution. Java, that's great. We really changed the culture. We really try and push people to really use DRI, to use SRE, and to use the right kind of modern solutions. Blue, green, push things out, fail fast. No more being on calls for hours, seeing if we can figure out or fix it. Just redeploy. Blow it away, redeploy. I used to have all these dev environments that would sit there for months after they were used. 5 different environments all look the same. QA, test, dev, dev2, production. We blew away all the pre-prod stuff. We build it when we need it, and then we blow it away again. You just redeploy it out. There is no need to have a QA system sitting there for months at a time if you only need it for a week out of the quarter. Same thing for anything that's deployed just rapidly. Put it back out again, then blow it away. We've really tried to up-level the skills. We tried to make sure everybody is learning about Azure itself. I actually ran internal training for my own team so that they could get focused on the cloud, right? And we're Microsoft, so we should know all about the cloud, but it really was about devoting the time, making them go. You're going to spend 3 days learning the cloud stuff just like you're doing here. This is important. You make that priority for the teams, you make that time, and you make that money for them to do it. Otherwise, they've got their day job and they're not going to get it done. So that's one of the things what we really tried to push. We really tried to focus on business outcomes. Now, the great thing about that was I can do that now because, again, I have business PMs that are no longer worried about hardware cycles. What's my PO the HP or the Dell hardware's going out of warranty. I'm going to have to get the PO going. I have to go talk to those sales guys. I got to figure out what, all of that's gone. Now they can just worry about what am I going to spin up in Azure, and then I can watch it from week to week on how it's doing. And similarly, I don't have to then go bug them about, you have to update your SAN, you have to update all the things that I'm always worried about them updating. Azure just takes care of all of it. New version of the hardware, they take care of it under the covers. I don't care. Nothing I have to worry about anymore. Same thing, they can then focus on the app. They can focus on the ways that the app can improve, the improvement for the customer experience. Azure itself is then just a provider. It's another provider that we use. And I have a support contract, just like many of you folks probably do. I open cases, Azure fixes it, I'm happy. Azure doesn't fix it, I yell at them, and then they fix it. Same experience. I'm a paying customer. I'm an internal paying customer. I'm a Microsoft employee, but I'm still a paying customer for Azure, and I expect them to keep their stuff running. In fact, I am limited to just one provider. Many of you have choices. And so I'm going to hold them accountable for what they need to have working. And they do a great job. My SLAs have improved. My uptimes have improved. I hate to say that because I used to run the Hyper-V environment, but it is the truth, and that is the case. And so I'll be happy to tell you that I'm happy with Azure, and it's worked a lot better than I was expecting at first, and pleased to be pleased. Now, we've really tried to mature our operating model. One of the things that we really started to look at is looking at the user design, looking at the business outcomes. That's top now. A lot of the times when we were doing design before, it was how do we make it cost effective? How do we make it on budget, on time, on task? Now, because we've got this cloud that provides these services for us, we can focus more on what's the business outcome, how can we make the user experience better? Because I'm not worried about so much how am I going to make it scale within the thing that I have to buy. If I have to buy some third-party product, how am I going to make sure I justify that I spent that money to make this thing work? Sometimes I may have to pump it up to make it work. Now we're making it happen. The other thing we're really starting to look at is the consolidation of the data. That's really been interesting. If I went out right now and I looked at my entire environment, I would find probably 6, 7, 8 copies of the same data, right? People would have the SAP data, they'd pull it out, they'd make their own copy, they'd make another copy, they would have it because they needed to do something with it, do some, kind of things they needed to figure out. We're throwing that all into data lakes now. We're throwing that all up into ADLS so that they can just have it there, pull the information directly without having to have all these copies. This is saving me time, money, and efficiency. Same thing, we're trying to make sure the apps are modern, and we're trying to make sure we keep things clean. A lot of that is from a hygiene standpoint. If you think about all those systems that used to be sitting out there for months at a time, that's a security nightmare, right? All of those systems with ports open, not patched. When WannaCry occurred, you would not believe some of the stuff we cleaned up in the lab, right? It's because that stuff just sits there, and once they use it, they're done. They don't ever go patch it again. They don't worry about it anymore. They forget what ports were open. So a lot of the stuff we did was to make sure that we had good processes and make sure that we're cleaning it up, and then to get everybody thinking in that mode. Yep. Trying to make sure everything was clean from the get-go, and then clean it up afterwards. And so a lot of that has turned into what we call modern engineering. Making it as simple as possible, build it when you need it, make it efficient for the customers, and a better user experience. That's been the priorities now that we've moved everything into the cloud. So the lessons that we learned, a little bit of a summary. 1, you need to have the CIO and the senior leader support. If you've got people with competing agendas, you're not going to be successful. Our CIO said you're going to move to the cloud, period. And then we would have people that were special unicorns say, no, I really, mine's hard. I can't do this. And he'd say, by the way, SAP said they can move their stuff to the cloud. Are you saying you're more complicated than SAP? Because I'm not believing you right now. So that really shut up a lot of those folks, and we started moving everything into the cloud. We also created a V team that included our networks, our security, our compute folks, make sure everybody can have the right information at the right time to make everything work. We then had a lot of reporting. We had a lot of reports, day to day, week to week, show you how you're doing on your cloud plan, how you're moving all your stuff, are you staying on your bill, right? The old model of having a quarterly report, no, you're looking at every week, how much are you spending? you can crank it up and down. Now, the nice thing with the cloud, if you start spending too much, yeah, you cut it back a little bit and you say the SLA is going to suck for a little while. You can do that. It's cool, right? You can just, you don't have this hardware that's just sitting there you can't really do anything with. Now you just crank back a couple instances, you save some money. Reports are going to take 2 days now. It's possible to do this. The other thing we made is to shrink the problem, retire, right size, refactor, the 3 R's. The 3R program, invented by some pretty smart people. In order to make sure you're doing the right things with your environment, resize the heck out of it. As soon as you move it to the cloud, just start cranking it down till they complain. Saves money, moves it the right way. The other thing is, make sure that you right size, make sure you refactor things that should be refactored into some sort of solution. I had so many SQL servers that were just sitting on an operating system and they were just one table. It's like, all right, we're throwing that into DB or document DB or something else. All these different options. SQL Server was always the answer. Tons more available solutions, and we just figured out what they were and put them in there. The other thing is make sure that we did a decision framework. Every one of my apps got a cloud plan, right? Are you going to stay as a VM? Are you going to go to a DB? Are you going to go to a microservice? And we've continued those cloud plans as we started moving the IaaS systems now into microservices. We have a plan to have no VMs on-prem by the end of FY19, and we're going to shrink our IaaS a bunch because we're going to turn everything into a microservice. It's going to scale up and down, and I don't have to patch it anymore. Awesome. All right. That's my spiel. Now, make sure tomorrow, 3 o'clock, my boss's boss's boss, Kurt Delbene, will be doing a talk along with Julia and talking about our digital transformation. This is the strategy. Now, the great thing, the guy that's in charge of our department, the IT, also sets the strategy for the whole company. And so that's great to have him in charge of us. He's helping us really modernize and move forward. And it's a really interesting talk. Our different sessions, we had a bunch today. I hope you're able to make some of those. Tomorrow, we've got Robert, who's going to be talking about rebuilding for the cloud. He actually did some pretty cool stuff where they took a dual huge SQL server, and they split it all apart into parallel tracks, and now it just scales like crazy. So you should really hear him talk about that, because it's pretty cool what they did. It was basically 2 superdomes that were never going to grow bigger, and we just split it all up, and it does spectacular. And it improved the SLA. All right, and I already mentioned Kurt, and I think then, oh yeah, go to IT Showcase. I've got a blog on there. I've got a whole bunch of papers on there. I got a couple webinars. We talk all about our journey. We talk about how we made it from here to there. Go see all the information, and make sure you do your evaluation and send it in. Cool. Thanks.